Meeple Out, a chance for one of us to tell you about a game we particularly enjoy. Today's game is Game of Thrones, published by Fantasy Flight Games, based upon the popular book series Songs of Fire and Ice by George R.R. Martin. Now this game is basically an area control game where the objective is to get your major house from the land of Westeros and become the king or the lord of the Iron Throne. Now to do this, of course, it's going to require battles, strategy, and maybe a little bit of backstabbing in order to get this done. Rules of the game. How this game is played is, first of all, every player picks a major house from Westeros. Now depending on how many players you have will limit how many or which houses you can choose from. But at the beginning of the game, everyone chooses a house. Now once you choose your house, each house also has its own set of pieces. The plastic pieces indicate foot soldiers that you can send for attack, knights, boats, and there's also siege towers that you can use to battle other people's fortresses and castles. Also, when you pick your house, you also get your action tokens or your decision tokens. This is going to tell you what you're going to do each round of the game. On the house information sheet, it tells you your starting positions, or what lands do you control in Westeros. Every house has different lands they control at the beginning of the game. It also tells you how many foot soldiers or how many knights you place in those lands, or how many boats you place around your lands that will help you get around Westeros. The other thing that the house card tells you is how many castles or fortresses that you start with. Now, the objective of the game is to be the first one with 7 castles or 7 fortresses. Once you do that, game ends and that place is declared the winner. The other way to win this game is to just battle it out and survive for 10 rounds and be the one with the most castles at the end of the game, and therefore control the most power in Westeros. The game card also tells you where you start on the supply track. Now, the supply track kind of tells you how much wealth and how much ability you have to supply your armies out on the field. And the higher you are on the supply track, the more powerful and the larger the armies that you can have. It tells you on the board exactly what your biggest army could be, which means the highest number of men or points of men you can have in one region, all the way down to how many of those combinations that you can have. The final thing it tells you is your place on the influence track. Now the influence tracks are very important. The Iron Throne track kind of tells you your influence over all of Westeros. And if you are positioned at the highest point in the Iron Throne track, you get to decide ties. The Fiefdoms track tells you how well, kind of represents how well you are at combat. And the higher you are on that track gives you a benefit or a bonus in combat. And finally, the King's Court tells you how much influence you have in planning and strategy. The higher you are on that, the more likely you are to play special strategy tokens. Now, some of these strategy tokens that you place to determine what your armies are going to do each round have a star on them. You can't use all of those, and exactly how many of those you can use is dependent on your position on the King's Court influence track. The higher you are, the more of these you can play. The star planning tokens gives you a big bonus in that there are benefits to playing these, and they give you special options that are not available to anyone else who's playing the token without the star. And so that kind of is where you start. Now those are all going to change throughout the game. Your supply track is going to change based upon how many regions that you take over that have special supplies with these supply tokens, which are barrels. And your position on the influence track is going to be really dependent upon kind of a betting scheme. There are certain cards that you pull at the end of each round, and some of them says rebid on the influence track. Well, during the game or during the rounds, one of the tokens that you can place gives you the option to pull these from a central supply. The more you bet of these, the more likely you're going to move up on the influence track, the more abilities that you're going to have. So during the game, what you're going to do is everyone's going to start out by having their pieces placed. Then at the same time, each army on the board will be given a plan or a special order token. At the same time, everyone looks at their map and decides what orders they're going to give to each troop, and each region of troops has to have, I'm just take that one off, it's the wrong family, has to have a special order token telling what it's going to do that round. There are several special order tokens. The first one is defense. That gives you a special ability if somebody tries to attack you. It gives you a special defense that you're able to fight them off. There is a support token, looks like a gloved fist or an iron fist. This allows you to give a benefit to your team if it's being attacked, or if it is the attacker. If you have a region with a support token in it and an army there, you get to add their points to your defender, to your attacker, to sway the tide of battle. There's raid tokens. Now raid tokens are kind of sneaky in that before everyone else takes their marching turn or their attack turns, the raiders get to cancel out other tokens of the people around you, such as support tokens and other raid tokens or consolidate power tokens, depending on which ones you play. So they're kind of sneaky tokens that kind of affect other strategies after they've already plotted them out. And the final one is, of course, the consolidate power token. The consolidate power token allows you to gain more of these bidding tokens. You get even more if you place a consolidate power token on a crown that's already in a region. And if you play the one with the star on it, it also allows you to muster more troops as long as you don't bust the size of your maximum armies. So once everyone places their order tokens for the round, at the same time everyone flips them over and you carry out the orders in a specific turn. First of all raid orders of everybody is decided first, then all march orders, and then you kind of clean up and take care of everything that's left over after that. The order of play is dependent upon your position on the victory track. The person who is at the highest position goes first, and then the second position, third position, fourth position around the table. Each person, for example, if I have 3 march orders, I do my first march order, it goes to the next person, they do their first march order all around. If I have a second march order, then we go around again until all the tokens and all the order tokens are finished up. Once that is completed, you kind of clean up a little bit, and then you flip over the Westeros cards. And these just tell you special events that occur during the game, such as adjusting the supply, mustering troops, dark winds, which are kind of foreboding activities that occur during the play. And they'll affect the overall gameplay, and they'll affect what everybody can do the next round. Also on some of these, there's a special icon that talks about the wildlings. Now, if you don't know anything about the book, the wildlings are the wild members of the north that have been cut out of Westeros for many years by the Great Wall. And they keep attacking Westeros, hoping to kind of take it over and overthrow the kingdom. And if you get enough of those tokens, the wildlings attack. And if the wildlings attack, we all have to work together to fight them off. How we work together is we hold a vote. And everybody will decide how many of these tokens they're going to dedicate to the cause of fighting off the wildlings. We all vote, and we toss out our vote tokens. If all of them are cumulative or greater than the points of the wildlings, we win. If they're less, well, Westeros loses as well, and there's going to be a punishment to pay. Once you decide the outcome, you pull a wildlings card, and it tells you what happens if there's a victory and what happens if there is a loss to the wildlings. And usually they're not good things to happen. So that's the basic rules in a nutshell. It's a lot more complicated than that, but I wanted to give you an overall idea of play. Let's talk about components. Let's face it, this is a Fantasy Flight game. The components are amazing. Each house has their own house card, which specifically tells you where you start and how you're starting the game, as well as tokens. These are plastic, really well cut and designed tokens, easy to identify what each token is and what role they play. The chits are very thick cardboard chits that we expect from Fantasy Flight games. High quality cards for replay over and over again. And there's also an instruction or quick rules that tell you how to play the game, so if you have a new player, it walks them through each of the steps one at a time, letting you know how to play it out. Overall, the components are amazing. The map is easy to read. Each of the icons are very clear. This could have been a very complicated map, very busy map, but how they have it set up, it's very easy to see what's going on. The tracking is right there. Every house has their own token dedicated to it. Let's just say it's your basic Fantasy Flight fare. They went all out and they did a great job. Likes and dislikes. Okay, I'm going to start this part with saying I'm a fanboy of the series, so this was a like for me from the get-go. But as a game, I even have to say it plays very tightly. Exceptional amount of strategy that's involved, especially depending on your house. Since each house is kind of asymmetrically placed and positioned for power and influence, you really have to use a lot of strategy. and some houses require more strategy than others. Now, a lot of people have nicked that as being a complication of the game. Let's face it, the Starks have a hard time battling down because they're locked in. The only way for them to get more influence in more houses is to battle down where there's already a lot of families fighting for space in regions. They have a tough go about it. It requires a different strategy. The further down you go on a 4-player game, if you are the Lannisters, which are down here, they kind of have an easy go, but there's not a lot of anything impeding them going south and gaining a lot of land very, very quickly. Now, although that seems like a detraction, it's designed to be a strategy game, so I believe that actually adds to it. And it's also very thematic if you know the book series at all. How you gain power is your position on the map, and you have to utilize that to your advantage. I really like the strategy involved with it. The battle, or the combat, is a very simple combat. It's how many men you have versus how many men they have, plus any bonuses you have from the fiefdoms track, or holding the sword. Whoever is the highest influence of the fiefdom track gets the sword icon, and they can utilize that for combat. Then everyone has a set of house cards, and you choose one of the house cards. You add the point of the house card to the point of your combatants, to the point of anyone who is supporting you with the support tokens, to the point of if you have the sword or not, and the highest number wins. There's no dice, there's no really luck involved in it. Very, very tight game for battle, and each card can only be used once until you run out of cards and you reshuffle them in, so you really have to use strategy on who am I going to attack and how much power do I need. So there's a lot of strategy built into it, a lot of player interaction, and you really determine your own destiny. Do I go for a higher supply so I can build bigger armies? When I'm bidding for influence, do I want this Iron Throne, or am I going to get into some battles? I need some fiefdoms, or maybe I'm low man of the totem pole and I'm kind of in the back right now and losing. If I'm on the King's Court, I can use more of those special tokens to get to get ahead or get a little bit of ground and get going. Dislikes, I will be very honest, I don't have many dislikes in this game. A lot of people say the biggest problem is the asymmetrical combat and where you start. Asymmetrical, I should say, a strategy of where you're starting, but to me that fits with the game. My score. Score of 1 to 10, 1 being horrible, don't buy it. Score of 10 meaning go out and buy it immediately. Well, I'm going to say this. If you're a person like me who loves really heavy games, big strategy, one that really requires you to pay attention to the game and think out, and even maybe make alliances with other people to get ahead, and then stab them in the back at the last minute so that you can be the one who takes the throne and becomes the ruler of the kingdom, this game is for you, and that's why I love this game. This game for me is a 9. Almost a 10, I always hedge on that 10. 10 is a perfect game. There are some things that can be tightened up with this game just a little bit, nothing really big. More combat cards or different combat cards are coming out with expansions for that, so that's helped out. But this is a 9. I think this is your type of strategy game, this is a must-buy. If you like Songs of Fire and Ice and you're a board gamer, to me this is a no-brainer. Go out and buy it. By far, in my family, this is the favorite game. Whenever I ask my family what game do you want to play, #1 answer from them is Game of Thrones, the board game. So there you go. Thank you for watching, and let me know what you think of Games of Thrones.